Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. I promised I wouldn't go off on the governor too much, but I do need to cover this part of the story. The governor, and I'm talking about the incident in New Mexico where they basically said you couldn't have concealed carry or open carry in Albuquerque or Bernalillo. The governor had to change her order, or decided to change her order. And now what she's done is stopped you from carrying, because she was stopped cold by the courts with a TRO, a temporary restraining order. She was actually stopped, reworded it, rewrote the order so that it's only in public places like parks. Now, there is merit here, and there's not a lot of ways we can fight it for right now, because there are other case laws throughout the country where governors or mayors were able to do this type of thing. So your rights in Bernalillo County specifically are still curtailed a little bit, but it means you can't carry your gun openly or concealed. How they're going to enforce the concealed carry part of it, I don't know, in public places like parks. Because, you're not going to need a gun in a park, would you? I'm being sarcastic. You know that's where a lot of crime actually happens, despite them being very open and very good, at least in San Juan County they usually are. But even here we're starting to see more crimes pick up in parks, because that's one of the most open places you can go, and that's open to the public, and disturbed individuals do bad things there. I also want to extend a prayer, and there was a sheriff that was in California who was shot execution style while he was just doing his job. Maybe California will finally understand that this is not a gun issue. This is a people issue. There is time and time again this type of incident. I understand having a problem with authority, especially law enforcement to some degree, especially after COVID. But they're still just trying to do their job. They're still trying to keep people safe. And for this guy just to go to work one day and get shot because he's just executing his job, that's not what should happen. But this again highlights that people are nuts, and it's not a gun problem. It is in fact, a people problem. We run into this all the time. We keep hearing and seeing these stories time and time again. This like I said, this guy just put on his badge and he went to work to defend and protect people. That's what cops are supposed to do. That's not necessarily what they do all the time, and we've seen that. I also saw that a few weeks back, or a month or two back, there was an incident where police showed up in Farmington, New Mexico, to the wrong house, and they killed a homeowner. And I'm still very pissed off about this. That's my own opinion. But thinking about the interaction, what happened, it's come out more that this guy didn't bother to look outside, the guy that was killed, that is, didn't bother to look outside before he opened the door with a gun. I still have issues with that, even that it happened in that way, in that he was blinded by lights, so he couldn't see what was going on. I still think he should have been able to look outside before he answered the door, because he would have definitely seen the law enforcement guys out there. That's no excuse for what happened next. Turns out that this gentleman, his son, is also a law enforcement officer. So it makes even more sense that he would actually show up to the door with a gun, especially on a night like a normal weeknight in New Mexico. Late at night, someone's pounding on your door. I would probably, I have shown up to my door and answered the door with a firearm. But I usually check my cameras that I have to where I can see outside. At the very least, I look outside before I open the door to see what's going on. That's just part of being a man. I think that you're going to protect your home and you're going to go do what you need to do. Or, head of household, any lady would have done the same thing, at least I would hope, in New Mexico. Or that they would just bother calling the cops and say, hey, there's someone pounding on my door. Because opening your door is probably not the best thing to do that late at night anyway. But the insistence of law enforcement pounding on the door probably would have necessitated answering the door. It's tragic what happened, but with where I was going with this particular statement or story is that those officers don't have qualified immunity anymore. So they should be sued till they can't live anymore, basically, is what I'm getting at. Because they killed an unarmed citizen, an innocent man, though, they deserve every bit of legal action against them. And that's what it looks like the wife of that man is doing. It still looks a little weird from outside looking in that this man had some connection to 2 deaths at a salvage yard. But what makes it look really weird is that if that's the case, then it means that we have a dirty cop, which is very possible. But why I'm saying a dirty cop is they showed up to the wrong house for service. This would have had to have been orchestrated some way, which shows more of a nefarious actor type thing going there. But more so on the fun side, I was looking at some stuff, and Mr. Guns and Gear inspired me to think about this a little more. You know, there are certain guns that you just shoot better. Okay, certain guns work better for certain people. And it usually has to do with their body type or how they use the gun itself, how they grip the gun. I'm thinking about pistols specifically. And if you don't grip a gun correctly, a certain type, a certain model, whatever, and you don't shoot it well because of that. And Colion Noir kind of inspired this too. Colion Noir shoots a Glock 19, loves them, okay? But he can't stand the Glock 17. And now you think about that. What's the big difference between the Glock 19 and the Glock 17 is the length of it and how the gun reacts under recoil. Well, Mr. Guns and Gear had something similar happen. Mike, he shot the SR9, the new SR9 compact, and the only malfunctions that the weapon ever had was how he grips the gun is kind of high, and it engages the slide lock. Now, I personally have never had anything like that happen, with pistols, that is. But I've seen other people that have larger hands than me that have gripped the pistol, and they'll introduce a malfunction in a similar way. They'll hit the slide lock, the gun will malfunction and stay open because of that. And I've noticed it specifically more with rifles. So I have seen some people use AK rifles, and as reliable as the AK is, and its reputation for being reliable is, there are ways you can make the AK malfunction, okay? One of them is when you charge the weapon, okay? If you don't learn how to charge an AK, and that means pull the bolt handle back and let it go. Don't walk it forward, don't ride it forward, because that tension that it needs for locking up and engaging correctly is dependent on that spring. And to do that, you have to rock it like you mean it and let it go, and then that spring pushes it correctly in battery and it's ready to go. But I have seen in multiple places where people are afraid, they see that as babying, or they feel the need to baby their gun, and they're like trying to save wear and tear on a gun. At least that's what's going on in their mind, and they'll ride that charging handle all the way forward. Then the gun goes click, no bang, or doesn't even go click because it's still so far back it's not going click because it's not fully into battery. It's training scars that causes most of those type of malfunctions. You know, I myself had one of those training scars with my PTR 91. Now, my PTR 91 is, if you're not familiar with it, is a roller-delayed G3 clone rifle. So German HK G3 rifles were in play up until 2000. The German Bundeswehr still uses them as designated marksman's rifles. But with that, I had just bought my PTR, and I was trying to keep it as pristine as I possibly could, because this was one of my first expensive rifles. And there is such a thing as the HK slap. Okay, so you charge the handle, you pull the handle back, and there's a notch where the handle for your charging handle goes. And if you pull that out and you just walk it forward, kind of like you would with the AK in that other scenario, what you're actually doing is you're not allowing the bolt to go all the way in and lock up. And you will get a click bang, no bang, okay? It's also a potential safety issue if the gun does manage to go off because it's not fully in battery. The case isn't fully supported in the chamber, and that little space for head space will be off, and the gun could possibly explode. In my case, what happened was I very lightly put the charging handle down and walked the bolt forward like I just criticized for the AK, and I got a click, no bang. That made me think about what I just did, and you don't have to necessarily slap the bolt or the charging handle. You do have to pull it out of its recess and immediately let it go, though, okay? And then it will lock up like it's supposed to and allow you to fire the gun. Fast forward when I bought my MP5 clone, that is, because it is one of the ones from Century, so it's a Zenitco, not Zenitco. It's the one that starts with a Z, and I'm blanking for some reason. But it's a full-size MP5. Anyway, what I notice about that is it's typical HK. I mean, this gun is made off of HK tooling. It's the same thing, basically, as theirs, as an HK. Well, I did something similar with it the first time I shot it. Again, this is an expensive gun. I want to make sure I'm not marring the finish on such a beautiful gun. Well, then it snapped again. No, this is a tool. You need to use it like it's intended. So the HK slap really does matter. If you get in that habit of slapping it, not only is it cool, makes you look movie cool to slap that handle down and let the gun go fully into battery on its own. There's a reason why you do it, and that's what I'm talking about. Whether it's the HK style guns, or it's the Kalashnikov style guns, or even the AR-15 style rifles. I've seen people in practice do the same thing with the AR-15, where they pull the charging handle, lock the bolt carrier group back, and when they go to release it, I've actually seen someone grab the charging handle and kind of do that same thing that I'm talking about with both of the HK and the AK. They very lightly let it go into what they think is in battery. Well, it hasn't fully locked up. There's a reason why that spring tension is on the return springs for any of these guns. It's to make them fully engage and fully lock up and fully be safe so that when you fire them, they go bang. In the AR world, I got a click, no bang, or I've seen the guy get a click, no bang, and I had to look and see what this person was doing to this gun, because if you use them like they're intended to be, this type of malfunction doesn't happen. If you hear of someone using a Kalashnikov and it goes click, no bang, and it's not an empty magazine, there's something they're doing wrong with the gun. How they're charging it, how they're manipulating it, or the gun has some broken parts inside of it. Okay, that's the only things that could ever go wrong with the AK when it comes to this particular issue. With an AR-15, for that type of scenario to happen, to get a click, no bang, but they have a loaded magazine and they have a round in the chamber, there's a series of things I could think of that would cause that, one of which was the one that actually was the problem. It was the first one that we started talking about. What did you do to charge the weapon? So the AR-15 is designed just like the AK. When you pull the charging handle and you've got a loaded magazine in it, you let it go and it goes home and it does its thing. Okay, and you put it on safety, then you get ready to engage your target, flip the safety, bang, click, bang. There's no click, bang. It's bang, 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 bang. But if you baby the gun, or you're not used to the gun, or you're not training yourself to do what you're supposed to do, that's the more specific issue I wanted to introduce, is that you start introducing malfunctions. And the only way you get around that, if you're determined to use that gun, is to train with it and learn how to use it properly. This is where you have good mentors. You know, I hope I'm a good mentor to my friends and to my family and anyone who's in the 2A that's interested in learning how to shoot. This is the type of thing that a noob will try to do or will do, and they don't know how to get around it. And that's where that mentoring comes in, is if you're watching them and you can stop them and say, hey, that's not going to work and here's why. Don't just scald them. Don't make them look foolish. That's not what we're here for in the New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. We want to make them the best shooters and best representatives of the 2A possible. So you help them with those training scars. Then once they get past those training scars, they'll get more confidence in the weapons platform, and then they won't have those issues anymore. And seeing Mike, who is a guy who shoots thousands of rounds a week, have an issue with a gun, but he immediately was able to identify what the problem was, is how he was gripping the gun. He's gripping it too high, and most people don't do that, but that's just his natural grip. In that particular model, under that particular review, that introduced malfunctions, and it made me think about how I had seen that in my own personal life. And the one that came to play, the one that came up right away in my mind was my son. So my son, when he first got his first Kalashnikov, his first rifle, he liked the way it looks. He loves the way it looks. He loves the finish. He's trying to keep it as clean and pristine as possible. And I have talked to him several times before that, again, AK rifle is not prom queen. AK is biker bitch. She gets things done. Okay? You have to be a little rougher with an AK than you do any other rifle. Most of the time you have to fix a Kalashnikov, you do it with some sort of hammer. That's not a joke. That's the real truth. To sit there and try to pristinely keep the gun, I understand, because there are some collectible guns that I personally have, like my M1 Grand, that I baby the hell out of it too. But when you baby it, if you're not using it for, if you're just recreational shooting it, let's put it that way, and you're not tactically shooting it, or you're not depending your life on this gun, then I can see babying the gun a little more because you're trying to keep its value up. But when you're trying to use it for tactical purposes, for life-saving purposes, as the tool it was intended to be, that's where you need to be a little more assertive with your gun, okay? And that's what I had to teach my son. And I've seen that with other people in Kalashnikov specifically, that they cheat. It's called cheating that bolt carrier group forward just enough to where it looks like it's closed, but it's not going to actually lock up and engage and fire. And then seeing Mr. Guns and Gear, and then seeing Colion Noir talk about how he can shoot the Glock 19 better than he can shoot the Glock 17, this Colion Noir. And the reason why is the ergonomics and the way the gun balances and fits and rides and does what he needs to. And Mr. Guns and Gear, who can shoot anything, anywhere, just like Colion Noir, but he has this one issue with this one gun that was introducing malfunctions. Now, it's happened to him before, Mike from Mr. Guns and Gear, and he's able to identify it right away. But how many of our new shooters, or how many of the shooters that are in New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union, have some of those types of issues? You know, you just have one gun that just doesn't seem to you love it because it looks great, or you spend a lot of money on it. But every time you take it out to the range, there's some sort of malfunction with it. Look very carefully at what you're doing, okay? My brother is an AR fanatic, loves the AR-15. But he never really lubricated his weapons as much as he probably should have. After he's been taught how to do that, though, his guns run solid. But there was a point in time that they weren't as reliable as they should have been, because he didn't understand that you need to make the gun wet as for the AR-15, especially in New Mexico. And that's not necessarily the case. You just need to make sure that there's certain places in the AR-15 is lubed. Same thing with the Kalashnikov. Kalashnikov, any of these guns are machines. They need maintenance. They need love and care. You need to know how to do that. And that's where a mentor comes in. That's where your research comes in. And that makes you a better shooter. And that's what we have to focus on, is being the best you possibly can. Be great as you always are, so that if you do need this, if it does come down to life or death, I hope and pray it never does, but if it does, it works as its intended purpose is. And, with all the stuff that's going on right now in the world, how crappy would the news story be that you had your gun taken away from you by the person trying to assault you and then used on you because they managed to clear the malfunction that you induced yourself? Don't be that guy. Be the guy that actually knows what the hell he's doing with the gun. Be the girl that knows what the hell you're doing with the gun. Like, share, subscribe, be great.